Hey, Joe Gilder here from HomeStudioCorner.com. I want to show you another one of my favorite Studio One plugins, and that is ProEQ. It is just the stock EQ, and I love it. It's a great EQ. Let me show you some of the things I like about it. First of all, it is a 5-band EQ, fully parametric, so each band has a gain, a Q, which adjusts the width of the actual booster cut, and then the frequency. In addition, so you've got that across all bands, but you can change the lowest and highest band, so the low frequency band and the high frequency band can be changed. So you can have it be peaking, which is normal mode where it goes like this. You've got a bell and you can change the width. Quick tip, you can change the width by scrolling with your mouse. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And then you can click and drag and move it around. You can also move it by moving all these things, right? But you can change it. It defaults to, I can't remember, maybe a shelf. But peaking is how I leave it a lot of times. But if I wanted to use some sort of a shelf, boom, I can do it like that. Or a 12 dB shelf, or a 24 dB shelf. And that has to do with how sharp of a slope it is. But then you can also adjust the Q and get some crazy looking curves, which is cool. So that's available on your low frequency and on your high frequency. You can turn EQ bands on and off by clicking here, or by double clicking or single clicking on the little circle here as well. You also have both a high pass and a low pass filter included. Now, they chose to call it LC and HC for low cut and high cut. That makes more sense. Low pass filters are kind of a backwards way of naming things anyway. So the way you turn these on, you just click there to engage it, and it sets to up to a 48 dB per octave or 48 pole cut, which is just really, really, really steep. I tend to default to 12. To keep it nice and subtle and not too crazy with phase shifting and all that. But you can set it to whatever you want. And then you just adjust this to roll off however many frequencies you want. Same thing on the top end. You can roll off high frequencies, which I think if you don't use this very much, you should use it more. A lot of times, especially when you're recording things very clean in a digital system with really clean, bright microphones, you start to add up a lot of high frequencies, which can be sometimes too much. And so using a little bit of a low pass filter or a high cut filter can be really helpful as well. Another thing, you have a gain knob here. When you're not using the automatic gain, you can adjust makeup gain here. If you did a lot of cutting, you may want to boost the overall volume to get the volume back up to where it was. Or you can use the auto feature. I love the auto feature here because what it does, it essentially, as I adjust the volume with a boost or a cut, it adjusts the output volume of this EQ to match the volume difference that I'm creating. So essentially, I can do this, and the volume of the track will stay exactly the same. Let me show you what I mean. I've got this on a drum track, and listen to what happens when I have auto turned off and I boost or cut. It increases the volume quite a bit. Okay, so it's boosting kind of the overall volume of the track a little bit. When I turn on auto, it maintains a much more consistent volume. So you have to play around with it. It's kind of hard to hear here, and drums might not be a great example, but it basically, if I do a big boost up here and a big boost over here, it's going to lower the output volume so that when I listen to it with and without EQ, it's going to sound basically the same volume-wise, okay? So that's a really cool feature. The one thing I've noticed, and maybe they'll change this, I don't like about this, is when you use a high-pass filter, it compensates too much. If I do something like this, it turns up the volume way more than I think it should, because I think it knows it's getting rid of a lot of energy, but you don't really hear a lot of that in the mix. So there's that to worry about. So those are the main features of the ProEQ that I use. There are others, all this stuff up here that I don't mess with. That's the main stuff that I use. Now, one other thing that I would encourage you to do, if you find yourself, when you're using an EQ, you always come in here and you're changing this. Or you're always changing this from, maybe it defaults to shelf, and you're always changing it back to peaking. What you can do, save yourself some time and save a default, or replace the default setting with your default settings. So, maybe you want, I think when you buy Studio One, it comes default as this being a shelf. Maybe you want that to be a peak. Every time you insert an EQ, it's going to be set up as a shelf, and you have to come change that. Well, if you're always doing that, save yourself some time, set it up how you'd like it, with everything back at 0, which you can get to 0 by holding down Command and clicking on each knob, and they'll go exactly to their default, which is kind of cool. I love that feature. Then you can come up here, click on this, and look, you have replace preset, which is one thing, or you can store it as a default preset. That's what I did. I set it up how I like it to be set up. Same thing with a compressor and anything else. And then I store it as my default. So every time I drag an EQ into my session and use it, it's already got all the default settings like I like. And you can change that at any time. You're not locked in. If you change preferences over a course of a couple months and you want it to be a little bit different, make those changes and resave it as a default, and you're good to go. So there you go, ProEQ. I love it. You should too.